Hello, everyone. Greetings from Erie, Colorado. It's great to see all of you here. A bunch of my friends have joined, I see. And um, here's a question. Uh, I do these tool talks every 2 weeks. I'll be talking about that in a bit. And yeah, I might think about having a guest on here. And Stu would be a pretty good one. Um, we'll have to see how that might go. Yeah, thanks for the suggestion. And we've got people from all over the place here. Good to see you, Kieran from Michigan, and Dennis from New York, and a whole lot of people who have said hello, and it kind of scrolled on by. Worth, good to have you here. And David, my good friend. Yeah. Oregon, I hope the weather is good up there. And Dan from Canada. Yeah. So yeah, please put your comments in and ask me questions. Good to see you here, Roy. Always good to see you. And this is my Tool Talk Live. Before I get started on today's subject, I want to go over some upcoming events and things. My good friend Todd is here. Good to see you, Todd. Woodturning Tool Store. Yeah. And Shelly, I'm sure, is in the background too. This woodturning community is great. I make so many really good friends through times like this. And here's Dr. Bob. He's been around a lot of my live streams and IRDs and things. So yeah, great to have y'all here. If I don't greet everybody individually, it's just because there are so many and I can't keep up with it. So okay, so let's get going on things here. I am in Erie, Colorado, and today we have about half an inch of snow on the ground. It's springtime, because it started to rain first. And I always say that's the first sign of spring is rain. If it's winter, you get snow. Spring, we get rain. And we've got a bunch of stuff coming up here in wood turning that's a lot of fun. So I want to talk about some things here. I do these tool talks every 2 weeks on Thursday. So the next one will be 2 weeks from today on March 30th, noon Mountain Time, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC. We are on daylight savings, and I don't know whether the rest of the world is or not yet. So if you want to, no, that's not going to work. If you want to hear about my tool talks and other things I might do, please subscribe. You can either let me get the website address. Here we are. You can go to my website and click the subscribe button, or you can use your phone and take a picture of that QR code, and it'll send you right to my website, and you can sign up, and it'll get you the link for today. So I'm now doing these where you can have a direct link and not have to sit there on Facebook wondering how you find and start the whole thing, so that's kind of a new thing for me. And if you're on my list, you'll get that. Next thing coming up is day after tomorrow. Lyle Jameson is doing AW Presents, and I will be his moderator, so you'll see me there too. Lyle does a great presentation every time, and I always learn something, so I hope you'll join me there. You can sign up at woodturner.org, the AAW website. If you Google American Association of Woodturners, you'll find them, or woodturner.org. So that's going to be a good fun thing. And then my good friend Todd Raines does a live stream kind of like this. Of course, he's got his own style and his own subjects. And he does alternating Fridays on the odd weeks that I don't do it. He's at 2:30 p.m. Central, 1930 UTC. And his next one will be next Friday. So, yeah, tune in to Todd's. And how do you get to him? Let's see. You can sign up for his mailing list at woodturningtoolstore.com. And I'm sure he has a subscribe button, but it's not called subscribe button. It's called Get the Latest News. So that gets you on his newsletter, and he sends out notifications of all kinds of great fun stuff that all of us are doing. So I hope you'll go check out his website and sign up. And next up after that, I will be, like the day after Todd does his live stream, I'm going to be at the Totally Turning Symposium, and that is in New York. I forgot the city again, but if you Google it, I wish I had a link. I'm a little bit unprepared with that today. However, if you're not in upstate New York or close to upstate New York, or thinking about flying into upstate New York, this is not an online event. I will be in my shop delivering my presentations to their room, where people are going to be sitting in the room live, like the old days, 3 years ago when we used to only ever get together in person. And then the next weekend, Vendor Showcase is coming again. And I'm going to put the QR code up here for Vendor Showcase. You can actually find out about it if you subscribe to my list also. But here's the direct registration for Vendor Showcase. This is a really fun thing that myself and now 4 of my friends get together to do for you. It's free. It's open to everyone. You do have to register so you can get the Zoom link, but you don't have to pay anything to get the Zoom link. And it's April 1st and 2nd, 4 to 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to be focusing this Vendor Showcase on a tribute to John Jordan, who we lost very recently. He was one of the Vendor Showcase team, and we miss him a lot. It was a pleasure working with John. His artwork is fabulous, and he's just an all-around good guy. So we're doing a collective, and it will be auctioned off to Vicki and John's favorite charity. Vendor Showcase is Joe Fleming, airbrushing wood, Steve Worcester, turningwood.com, the abrasive guy, John Jordan with his turning tools, Cindy Drozda, that's me, turning tools and online presentations, Todd Raines, Woodturning Tool Store, tools and online presentations, and Lyle Jameson, hollowing tools and online stuff also. And we can see Lyle day after tomorrow. So yeah, please come to Vendor Showcase. It's just a lot of fun. And after that, never a dull moment for me around here. I'm always doing something. I'm going to be doing an online class on my fancy inlay box. And here is that box. It's a box with an overfitting lid. That means the recess is on the lid, the tenon is on the base. It's got a fairly significantly undercut shape, almost like hollowing. The double inlay is a process that teaches you about fitting parts together. And the large ring on the inlay is the same piece of wood that makes the foot on the bottom of the box. So that's kind of a cool little trick to get you some good continuity in the design. I'll be talking about design. I'll be talking about how to make a box like this one and variations on this design and the processes and workflow for doing a box. So that'll really be great fun. I love boxes. That's my pretty much favorite thing to be doing. So I'm always looking for an excuse to do more boxes. We've got lots of people here in Todd has put in the Vendor Showcase registration link. If you are on the StreamYard webinar, which I think most of you are. And that again is this QR code here. You can get to the registration link for a vendor showcase. So I hope you'll join us. It's going to be great fun. Okay, so I see a lot of people saying hello and everything. And oh, did I forget to talk about when the class is? Let me get back over here. I mean well, but I'm often behind the details. So the class is on April 8th, which is a Saturday. Start time is 1 p.m. Eastern, 1700 UTC at that point. And it goes about 3+ hours. No, I don't think you can put clickable URLs in any of these things. Maybe in Facebook. And yes, my friend Carter, he loves boxes, but in a slightly different way. So you can sign up for this box class on my website here. No. Here. And there it is. Here, or how about that one? That's just to my homepage. And that is cindydrozda.com. Trying to juggle comments here. Indeed. So yes, some people have a ton of snow. We're on the positive side of spring here in our world. And here's a good question. Also, that brings me to let y'all know, I want your questions. It doesn't have to be related exactly to today's subject, but that's kind of keeps the continuity of everything. How long do I let the wood dry for my boxes? Until it's dry. And that's going to vary a lot. How wet was it when I started? What species is it? I dry my wood in a homemade kiln, and that's what I do. Oh yes, and this is a detail that is not done yet. I don't have this sign up for the fancy inlay box ready yet. Computer work, right? I got lots of it to do, and I'm always a little bit behind on it. So I will get the sign up done as soon as I can, pretty soon. And that's coming. But meanwhile, if you subscribe to my list, and that is this one, you will hear all about it because I send out notices of everything I'm doing. Let's see. So this is about the question of how long do I dry the wood? I dry my wood for anything I'm making to the lowest percentage it can get to in my dry climate. And everybody's climate is going to be different. If you use some kind of kiln to dry your wood, you'll get it drier than if you just left it out on a shelf. If you use an oven, you'll get it absolutely dry. And I don't use an oven for everything. Oh, well, the link isn't showing the full address. Well, I guess my technology is failing me here, unfortunately. Sorry about that stuff. I will put links into the comments. These Tool Talk sessions stay on YouTube, Facebook, and StreamYard for an indefinite period of time. So I'll put links in there for all that stuff. And meanwhile, if you go to my website, which if you can spell my name, you can find me on the internet. It's real easy. And subscribe to that, to my email list, and you'll get all the stuff. Oh, how do you prevent cracks? Well, we're getting kind of off today's track in a way, but what I do to try to prevent cracks, and you can't always, is I seal the outside. So we're going to talk about wood here. Let's get that out of the way there. Just briefly, when I'm doing a box, let's say, I will drive a piece of wood in a solid chunk. I usually do not try to do a thick-walled rough out and let it dry and then turn it again for my boxes, because they're not big pieces of wood. So I'm going to take that piece of wood, and especially if it's curly or it's got burl in it, I will anchor seal, end grain seal the entire piece and put it in either on the shelf for a while if it's still pretty wet, or into my kiln. And then when I think it might be dry, I cut one of the corners off, like in preparation for making it into a round blank, or I cut the blank in half and I check with a moisture meter. And what I want to see is my moisture meter registering at the lowest that it can possibly get. Well, it looks like I should have done a session on drying wood today, doesn't it? So we're going to just let y'all lead me where you want to go here. What temperature do I use for the oven? 250, and until it doesn't lose any more weight. And that's what I do when I oven dry. If you sign up for my remote demo, yes, the recording is available for 6 months, and I send out a link to view the recording online for that time. So yeah, if you can't make it, you can always view it later. And thank you very much, Claudie, for this link here. You can copy and paste it if you can see it. All right. Do I rough turn before drying? Always with hollow forms or bowls, rarely for boxes. If I was making a box out of some really super hard exotic like lignum vitae or something like that, then I might, no, this is the one we're talking here. I might rough turn, and that means create the shape, but with a very thick wall to allow for distortion. And that will allow it to dry faster too. I almost always rough turn something before putting it in the oven. For how long in the oven varies depending on how dry the piece was to start with, but quite often it's a pretty long time. And I'll put it in for a couple hours, and I'll weigh it, and put it in for another couple hours and weigh it. And when the weight doesn't change, I consider it to be dry. Okay, so bring your questions on here, and I will do my best with them. But I kind of have a little bit of an agenda here that I wanted to get to, and that is my subject for today, which is going to be a Banksia Pod bottle stopper. And this is a design that I'm going to do, but you know, with bottle stoppers, a lot of variation is possible. So what we have here is this one. I tap the threads in the wood to use this hardware here that screws in. The one I'm going to do for you today, I'm going to use a little threaded insert like this. Threaded insert. There's threads in there. And the hardware will thread into the stopper with an insert so you can change the hardware, and also so that the vulnerable wood threads are not being relied upon. And, you know, as far as more wood things, I don't really know how to answer this. What species moves the least for boxes? But I'm going to make a stab at it. Burls typically do not go oval or distort much. Oh, except for madrone burl, which distorts like nobody's business. So, you know, that's kind of a tough question to answer. Every species is so different. I go by what kind of wood do I like to make my boxes out of? And I'm partial to burls, of course, but I also like curly wood and pretty wood of any kind. Mesquite is very good. And as Andy's pointing out here, mesquite hardly moves at all in terms of tangential versus radial shrinkage, meaning whether it goes oval as it dries. If you have an iPhone, the QR code thing, you can't do it while you're on your iPhone. That's kind of a glitch with this system. Do I glue in the insert? Yes, you will see that momentarily. You could run a pellet grill or a smoker or any kind of a device that will maintain a low temperature. Problem with your kitchen oven is, number one, it might make your kitchen smell weird, and your spouse might not like that. But number two, most kitchen ovens don't go that low and maintain it accurately. So yeah, something like a pellet grill or a smoker or that sort of thing. Good idea. And where do I get the inserts from? Well, a way that you can get the inserts is on my website. I have them, but I don't believe I actually have the link for it. But I'm using Niles Bottlestoppers parts. And before we get any further along, I want to present something out here. I am going to do a giveaway. So here's how it works. I'm going to give away two things. The bottle stopper that I make today, which it's not this one. It's going to have that insert in it, but similar shape, metal hardware, stainless steel with rubber O-rings, and a kit to make a couple of them yourself. So you'll get not that one, a nice looking Banksia pod. Here, raw Banksia pod, which is about the right size to make a couple of the stoppers. And so then you'll get a couple of the hardware and a couple of the inserts. So that's a kit to make your own bottle stoppers. We'll have two winners drawn. We'll do this close to the end of the session, which is going to be in about 40 minutes, 45 minutes. Right, so I've got a lot of stuff around here. I'm trying to move on. Starting the discussion about Banksia Pods. Okay, so get your comment. Hashtag bottle stopper. That's what you got to do. No spaces, no capitals, no dots. Hashtag bottle stopper, 2 T's, 1 L. That'll get you in the drawing. If you enter more than once, it'll still take only one entry for you. So you really can't get away with entering more than once. So there we are. Okay. So yeah, get your entry there, and I will start this by first saying that bottle stoppers, I'm going to use a Banksia today, but they can be many different shapes and wood and stuff. And I typically make them out of nice looking wood, put an inlay in them, opal or gem or mineral plus CA, turquoise powder. The one on the left there is ash, and it's got a black dye and then some white cream filler or pearl cream filler in it. And where that one came from is Todd Raines of Woodturning Tool Store. You know, he's the guy who does the live stream on the weeks between mine. He and I did a 6-episode series on bottle stoppers last year, and they're still up on YouTube on each of our YouTube channels. So you can go back there and get them. You'll get my 3 on my YouTube and his 3 on his YouTube. And I showed how I did that ash finish, and I showed how I did an inlay and a natural edge burl, and Todd did some texture and some other things. So I think he did resin. So yeah, check it out. That's a good resource, YouTube. And here is a description of what size a Banksia pod is. This is the fruit of an Australian tree, Banksia genus of plants, and they make little tiny ones that are a couple inches long, all the way up to great big ones that are something like 16 inches long, 400 millimeters long, and 100 millimeters in diameter, 4 inches. That's not what I will be using today, because if I am doing a bottle stopper, let's a little. I don't want it to be huge in diameter, personally. I'd like it to be, okay, a diameter that you could get your hand around to take it out of the bottle. That makes sense to me. Bigger, I don't think really works. So I'm going to start with one about this size. And what size is this one? Well, it's about 2.5 inches, or about 65 millimeters. And your choice about that, of course. Now, how am I going to get this on the lathe? What I'm going to first do is cut the ends off. And I'll do that on the bandsaw. I'm going to talk to you right now about the safe way to cut the ends off. And I'm going to end up with this, both ends cut off. Safe way to cut the ends off on the bandsaw is to use a hand screw clamp. And that's one of these. You've all seen these. They're called woodworking clamps. In the machine shop world, they're called parallel clamps, because the best clamping you get from them is when the jaws are parallel. Now, here's the fast way to size it. Gets smaller, gets bigger. Okay, and now I'm going to set it up here, and we'll go over here and get out to where you can see the whole job that I'm going to do, which is I'm going to clamp this Banksia pod in the parallel clamp so that I can safely cut the end off on the bandsaw. I've got a little bit sticking out of the clamp here, so I can just cut right across here. So the first thing I'll do is, see, it's not really very flat on that side. Okay, it's a little more stable right here. Next thing is, I want the jaws to be parallel with this clamp. If the jaws are not parallel and they're closer at the ends, then the only clamping force is right here at the end. If they're not parallel in the other direction, then the only clamping force is right here in the base of the jaws. So what I want to start with doing is get the jaws parallel at about the diameter of this Banksia pod. And then I'm going to tighten the clamp by tightening the back rod. What that does, tighten as in clockwise turn, brings the jaws closer together. So I got it parallel, and now I'm going to give it clamping force here by tightening this one. And now that's a safe way to run this piece across the bandsaw. Okay, so we're going to do that, and we end up with our Banksia pod. That should be pretty good. One's cut off. And you can see what it looks like on the end. For the bottle stopper, using the same setup, I actually didn't just cut the ends off. I cut myself some short pieces, the length I want for the bottle stopper. So now I'm going to start turning it, and I'll start between centers. And my goal here, okay, I want a chuck on the lathe. So we'll over here I got to move things a little bit to get where the chuck goes. All right. So I'll put my chuck on, and there are a couple of ways a person might do this. One is you could put a drive center and a tailstock center and put the piece between centers. First thing I'm going to do is cut a chucking point so that I can put it in a chuck to drill the hole and surface the bottom. If I just drilled the hole on a drill press, then it would not be necessarily parallel or perpendicular to the hole. Start that over. This face might not be perpendicular to the hole I drill. So even if I did drill it on the drill press, I would want some way to then surface this bottom where it goes up to the hardware so that it works, so that it fits well with the hardware. Okay, what length did I cut this blank? It kind of, varies on your mood for the day. This one happens to be about 2.5 inches, which is about 65 millimeters. There we are, about 65. So your choice. This one that I showed you, this little mushroom, I made the blank considerably shorter, and it was kind of like, because I had this Banksia pod that if I cut it in half, I could get 2. And if I wanted a longer mushroom, then it would have been only 1 out of that blank. So I just decided to make 2. It can vary a lot, but this is what I have today. Do the pods work well with resin? I think they do. I haven't done a lot of that. I've done some CA, filling the holes with CA, stabilizing the furry outside with CA. And what am I turning? It's a Banksia pod. Lots of fun. If you want a little bit of history about them, go Google Banksia and you'll see. And that's Banksia. So I want the end faces orthogonal. Is that the word for perpendicular to the lathe center line? Yes, only one end face has to be, and it is the one that is not easy to do. See, if I put my piece up here, then the face that's up against the chuck jaws, this end of the blank, is going to be orthogonal to the lathe center line. But this one here might not be, because I just cut it rough on the bandsaw. Now here's something. There was a bug in the pod and he made a little hole. So I need to think about my design, and I don't want a hole in the top of my mushroom cap. So this is where the stopper hardware goes. So therefore, it goes up against the chuck jaws right now. I don't have the most square and perfect. I don't. So let's just make this smaller. I'm using my chuck here as a friction drive. And I'm just going to bring up the tail center to that little center circle there for now. That's kind of like the pith of the Banksia pod. So yes, I have suspected that use of a pressure pot, if I wanted to fill the holes in a Banksia pod, that would be the way to do it. And I plan on experimenting with that, but I haven't actually done it yet. So I can't tell you much. I've done, and here's another option for you, is I have done Banksia pod bottle stoppers and other things where I turned all the rough part down, and now you can fill these with CA and powder of some kind. And that's what I've done in the past. But it'd be much nicer to use some, I don't know, Alumilite or liquid diamonds and mica powder, or so many choices. And I'll get to that one day. But right now, I am just going to make a natural edge bottle stopper. And I'm not going to fill the holes, and I'm not actually going to stabilize it with CA either. Do I use rubber shelf liners for my friction drive? No. I want more solid contact than any squishy stuff in between the two surfaces would give me. So I just want a flat surface. That's the chuck jaws, the face of the jaws, against a flat surface. That's the bandsaw cut on the end of my piece. And I'm going to hold it in place with lots of tailstock pressure. So first thing with the tailstock is, let's see how centered it is. And I'm thinking not very. This part of it is much closer to the tool rest, this right here, than the rest of it. And if I wanted to fiddle with it, I might say, well, okay, then let's just reposition our tailstock over a little bit, and maybe it'll be a little more evened out. Oh, so there it's really far away. So we're going to bring that a little closer. That's a different axis than the one I just moved it. And okay, I like that. And it's just held in place between the tailstock and the chuck. I could put a block of wood on the lathe too, or I could glue it to a faceplate waste block. Many ways to hold it. Also between centers with a live and drive centers, another way. So let's get something going here. I am going to start by making a little tenon. And we'll start the lathe on slow speed. This end at the tailstock is the top. Oh, I forgot to sharpen that one. That's never going to work. The top of my mushroom. And I'm going to use the bowl gouge. And first of all, we'll get a little more speed here. Just face it off, and then I'll make a very short little tenon here to grip it. Don't need a whole lot of power there. Is to hold it while I drill the hole. I've got right here a tool with an angle on it that will slightly undercut the shoulder and give me a little bit of a dovetail for my tenon. And now I can put the piece in the chuck. This is a lever chuck. I don't need to grip it really strongly, so that little tenon will be fine. I'm going to start now with facing off this end. This now will put the bottom of the piece, which is where the stopper hardware goes, up. What was that word again? I forget that fancy word, but perpendicular to the axis of the lathe. And that's what I want now. Nice to have a face shield for these Banksia pods because there's a lot of stuff flying around. It makes a big mess. And I wouldn't want to get hit in the head with one of these things either. So what I'm doing now is just facing off the end, flattening the end. Maybe I need another cut there to get it all flattened off. And I'm slightly undercutting it. That means I'm making it a little bit of a curve. Now I don't really need to find center because there's already a bug hole, but I want to make a little V to guide the drill bit in. So somebody's got a way to say on axis. perpendicular to the axis. How would I say that? Orthogonal. That's the word. I need to remember that word. It's a good one. Okay, so what we're doing with the giveaway today is I've got two prizes. One is the bottle stopper that I make today, and the other is a kit to make a couple of your own bottle stoppers. So I've got a drill bit of the size that will accept that threaded insert. So this little threaded insert is going in a hole. I'm going to glue it in. We're going to slow the lathe way down for the drilling. Maybe more than that. Usually drilling is best at a pretty slow speed. And I put a piece of masking tape on there to show me how deep I have to go. Now, when I back the drill out, I'm holding the drill chuck so that it doesn't pull the Morse taper out. So that's that part done. And I'm going to glue my insert in there. And I'm getting ready here for clamping or for pressing the insert in with my tailstock. So insert on a piece of dowel just so that I can hold on to it easier while I put glue on everything. I'm going to put some glue in the hole. And the glue I'm using, get back over here for that, is Gorilla Glue or polyurethane glue. Titebond makes a really good polyurethane glue. The reason I use this is because it does a good job on a wood joint like this, and it will expand into the gap between the hole and the hardware. So I'm just spreading the glue around, and then because I live in a really dry climate, I have to think about adding a little bit of moisture to the joint. So I can either spray the hole or I can spray the hardware with some water just to give it some humidity. If you're in a humid climate, you don't usually need to do this. And now I want glue on the other side of the joint as well. And this is why I've got that dowel, so I can hold on to this and not get glue all over my fingers. It also gets it lined up in here. And it doesn't look like this one needs to be pressed in, but sometimes the hole ends up a tight fit, and I'll bring up the tailstock to push, to act as a press to push the hardware in. And I'm looking to have the hardware below the surface. And now I'm realizing that I actually forgot a step here. Or did I? No, I did that step. The step that I was just concerned that I may have forgotten was, before I drill the hole, I wanted to face off the end, and I did do that. So I've got the hardware recessed in a little bit. That's mostly just to be sure that it's not sticking out, because if the hardware is sticking out, if the insert's sticking out, then the bottle stopper thing won't come up flush against the bottom of my wood. So now I've got to put this aside to cure for, I'm not sure how many hours. We'll put it aside. Presto changeo, here we have one that's ready to go. So now I'm going to mount the threads on a mandrel. And I've got a couple of choices for mandrels here. Let's see. You can make your own, and I showed that in one of those bottle stopper series last year, how to make your own. What you really need is some threads that will thread into that insert, and it's a 3/8 24, I believe, 3/8 24 or 3/8 16. Anyway, whatever thread matches the insert, or you can just thread your stopper on. What I did with this one was I drilled and tapped the hole so I could thread the wood directly on. Some people like to do it where with a mandrel like this one. This is a Niles Bottlestoppers mandrel. There's a little cut there, which makes it almost like a tap to cut wood threads. And people had told me that you have really good luck just drilling the tap hole in the wood and then hand threading it right onto the mandrel. I tried that with the Banksia pod, and I found that Banksia pods are not very strong stuff, and the threads weren't very secure, but it can work. All you have to do is have it secure enough to turn, and then glue your stopper hardware in so that it won't. So the threads are really no longer what you're working with. This one here threads on to my spindle. This one here, which I'm going to use today, goes into the number 2 Morse taper in my headstock spindle. And the thing about this is I want to be able to take the tailstock away. So I can't just have this in the Morse taper without something pushing it in. So I'm going to use a drawbar. And here's how that works. Now, you can make your own drawbar, of course, with just a piece of all thread. Here's what it looks like on the end. All thread, the same thread as the threaded hole in the end of my mandrel. And then on the other end, we've got a little cone to center up on the headstock hand wheel and some knobs to use for tightening this up. So this drawbar goes through the headstock and threads into the threads in the mandrel, and I can just start it going here. Start it threading in there while holding on over here to these knobs. And when it gets fairly secure, and you can see how there's a lot of extra here. I actually bought this one from the Woodturning Tool store because it came with all the little parts and everything. And this, I didn't show it, but there's a plastic tube around the all thread where it goes through the spindle to kind of protect things and keep it from rattling around and stuff like that. So now I've got it fairly tight. I'm going to tighten it up more by loosening those two that are jammed together and then tightening the one, which tightens my piece in the headstock here so it cannot come out. What's this little piece of wood on here all about? That is my solution for when I thread this on. And I'm going to make my base of my stopper match up to the diameter of the hardware here. The mandrel has a little diameter turned down to the diameter of their hardware. But if I accidentally touched that with my tool while I was trying to size them to fit, that would not be good. So I made a little wooden spacer that's something that the tool can touch and it won't damage anything. And I can make a new one if I touch that with the tool and starts getting all out of round or wrong diameter. So I've now got my stopper blank on a mandrel and ready to turn it. I'm going to bring up the tail stock, but I don't know if you can see what I'm looking at here. This one was not cut very well on the bandsaw. This is rough, Banksia pod, and it's not very flat there. So what I'm going to do is, I guess I could use a parting tool. Sure, why not? I'm going to just face that off, make a little center finding mark with my parting tool, the corner of the parting tool, and then bring up the tail stock. With the tail stock up, I now can work on this piece without a lot of vibration. Oh, and yes, where are we? Thank you for noticing. My hair is purple, and it's a work in progress. It needs a little more color, I think. All right, so now I'm going to shape the top and the underside. Basically, I'm going to make the shape I want my bottle stopper to be. And I'm using a bowl gouge. I'm going to start with some shape on the top here. An OG shape for a mushroom top. I have to remember that, let's get, this in a better position. I have to remember here at the tailstock that there's tailstock damage to be accounted for. So I just turned a little bit there. So now I have a target for my shape. I'm doing this just totally today by eyeball. If you've ever watched me make stuff, you know that I tend to be much more of a stickler for design elements and proportions and things than you're seeing me today. I'm just doing a free form kind of a mushroom and proportion between mushroom cap and mushroom base, you know, whatever you like. I'm doing most of it with the bowl gouge, and here's how I was using my bowl gouge, because I'm right-handed. But if you look over here, you can see that being right-handed now, my body's in the way, and I really want to undercut it more. So I'm going to flip over, and I'm going to turn left-handed and make this cut in here. And here, left-handed. I'm not great left-handed, but there we are. And we'll get some more shape to it. I like my mushroom base to be a little bigger than the stopper hardware and come around in a curve that ends with the diameter just slightly larger than the stopper hardware because I don't want it to be smaller than the stopper hardware. Now I'm getting to the point where getting in underneath that cap is not easy with the gouge, but it is very easy with a round-ended negative rake scraper. So I'm just going to get in here and use a scraper to create the shape I want. And I know the camera position doesn't really allow you to see where the cut is being made. So I'll show you on this one what I was doing. I was creating this curve right here where the cap transitions, and we can see it better this direction. Yeah, where the cap transitions to the stem. Anything goes here. And you could make this kind of a mushroom out of all kinds of different wood or other materials like Banksia pods. I could fill these holes or not. Quite often, a Banksia pod's edges are really kind of flaky, and I've made the natural edge fairly large here, fairly wide. But when you start making it super thin, it can get fragile. And CA glue is a great solution for that because you can put CA all anywhere you want and it'll solidify and stabilize the loose parts and it won't stain the wood. But best off, because it'll soak in a lot into this fuzzy stuff, best off if you use CA on Banksia, do it the night before, catalyze it. And don't just like put some CA on there and turn the lathe on right away, or it ends up all over your safety glasses and your computer and everything. So what do we got for questions here? Banksia pods. Yeah, they are somewhat brittle. There's no wood grain to a Banksia pod, so you don't get any of the benefits of grain structure strength like you do with regular wood. You also don't have any of the needing to cut downhill kind of requirements of regular wood. You can cut them with a gouge or something. You can scrape them. They scrape really nicely. You can get a bunch of tear out, of course, if you're too aggressive, and then cleans up real well with a negative rake scraper. But the biggest thing about Banksia pods is they're really weak because there's no grain. So you get a thin cross section and it'll just snap right off. Like making a finial out of a Banksia pod, not good. But they are actually hard and sturdy at the same time. The material is hard. It's a bit abrasive, so it dulls your tools really fast. But it's you can get really thin walls on a Banksia hollow form or box because they are fairly strong. So they're really interesting stuff. They're not following any of the rules for wood except for the one that they act like a piece of branch wood. They've got a natural edge all the way around and they're about branch diameter. So I think of anything you might make with a branch, weed pot, bottle stopper, I don't know, banana bowl. I've made some banana bowls out of Banksia pods. Works well for a Banksia pod. So I'm now I have my my bottle stopper all done in terms of the shaping, and all I have to do now is sand. And I will start. I'm going to just kind of go through the sanding. Not really. I'm going to start first of all slowing the lathe way down. And I'll start with 240, and I'm leaving the tailstock up, and I'm going to turn my dust collector on. I'm getting in here to sand right up to that mandrel, and I'm getting in here, and I'm going to sand under the cap, and these edges here, they catch on that natural edge really easily. So I don't want to have too tight of a grip on the sandpaper. It's likely to go flying. I don't really need to do all the sanding at this point. I could wait until I have taken away the tailstock and finished off the very end. Light cuts, especially if I've made the stem really thin, because like I was saying about the Banksia pod not having any grain strength, the Banksia pod is going to be liable to vibrate and possibly break from this cutting pressure. Now I could, if I wanted to, let's use this one. If I wanted to smooth out the shape, I can use this negative rake scraper here. Double beveled scraper gives a really nice fine cut, and that'll allow me to do some shaping, clean up the gouge ripples better than coarse sandpaper, because with this Banksia pod, we've got all these hard and soft places and all those holes and everything. And coarse sandpaper really does not do a very good job of smoothing a shape. So I want the shape to be perfect right away. 240, 400, at least 600. And then I'm going to do some finishing. So here's two things I would do on finishing a Banksia pod piece. Now let's answer this question here first. If I wanted to use resin to fill the holes, would I do it in the solid chunk like this, or would I do it now? If I'm doing it with CA and turquoise powder, let's say, I am probably going to do it now, because I don't want to have to turn a bunch of turquoise powder, and I don't want to have to waste a bunch of resin. But if I was putting in a pressure pot, I think I'd have to make a mold of some kind so that I don't end up just casting a big block of resin. So I'm not really sure, but I haven't done enough putting resin in the holes to really say. If I could somehow get the resin in the holes, like make a mold for this so that I don't just pour a giant block of resin and waste it, that might be a little better. Okay, anybody else have a question about the pods here? Oh, yes, I obviously have a fair bit of machine shop training. And the price ranges for pods. Let's see, the best price I've seen is if you go to Gilmer Woods and you buy 50 of them. They're about $7 a piece, and they're the smaller ones like I'm using here today. If you want a gigantic one, I don't have one within reach here, but they come really big. Like I said, 16 inches long, 13 inches long, 4 inches in diameter. And that's like 400 millimeters by 100. But those are like $30 a piece, and they're hard to get. So I've also seen them on Rockler with free shipping for $10. And I don't sell them because I can't get them unless I want to start importing from Australia. I can't get them cheap enough to give a good price. So I'm just not going to do that. And thank you very much, Dennis, for the kind words. I don't do in-person classes, but I do a lot of online stuff. So I will do one on Banksia Pods one of these days. It's kind of an interesting thing, because just like burls, you don't probably just find these in your backyard. You've got to go buy them. Ooh, googly eyes in the holes. I love it. Yeah, that's a great idea. You're going to have to make one and show us all. So lots of fun here. Do your entry into the drawing, hashtag bottle stopper, no spaces. You got to put that hashtag in there, just like this. Very good. Okay, and so I am done with the turning and sanding. You didn't see me do all of that sanding, but yes, I sanded it all the way to at least, I said at least 600. Okay, so what are my options and why? If I am going to sell something for a fairly, uh, what would you call it, a modest price, like a bottle stopper or a bud vase, I will probably use a spray can lacquer. And let's get over here and talk a little bit about finishing options. I like oil finish on a box or a hollow vessel, like with a finial or something like that. And I will sand to 4,000 grit and put my oil finish of choice. And it might be this Waterlocks, which is a tung oil based finish that I quite like. Or it might be this Sutherland Wells polymerized tung oil, another tung oil based finish that I quite like. It might be Wipe On Poly, which is not oil, although it acts like oil. It's diluted polyurethane resin, and it soaks in really well, which is great. If it soaks in a lot, it kind of helps to stabilize those furry bits. And the good thing about this stuff is it dries in 3 hours. Now, the bad thing about this stuff is it doesn't build a good finish. So I'll usually use this for a first coat and then put some of those other oils on over. And that's a more complicated finish. Plus, I spent twice as much time sanding. So that's something that I'm going to charge more money for, not like a bottle stopper. So on a bottle stopper, I'm going to use a rattle can acrylic spray lacquer. And this one is flat. This can is flat lacquer. I wouldn't use flat on a bottle stopper. I would probably use a semi-gloss so it had a little bit of sheen to it. And let's see, I want to show you what I do if I'm going to be lacquering my piece, because you got to hold on to it somehow. I've got a dowel in a block of wood that'll fit the hole, and I'll set them up like this, set it down on a surface, and then I can get my spray can and I can spray around the whole thing and not have to set it down with wet lacquer on it. I also use this kind of method to hold on to them, like after I've oiled it and I want to set it down. Well, yeah, I can set it down on this surface, no problem, because that's going to have the hardware up against it. I don't care if it gets marred by sitting on something, but to have it dry better, I would like to have it suspended. So I'll use a situation like this. And I usually put one dowel on a block so that I can have access to it all around for spraying. I don't put a bunch of dowels in a big board for this sort of thing. If I'm oiling them, maybe I would. Okay, so I just wanted to touch on the finishing a bit. And now what we can do is actually finish this one. Because what I'd like to do is show you a trick on getting a good finish with a Banksia pod. First, though, we're running over time a little bit, so I want to do the drawing, okay? So we're going to do a draw for 2 prizes. You've got a few seconds while I get everything done. Oh, good point, John, about a Lazy Susan with that little block of wood and the dowel on it. Great way to get the piece maneuvered around so you can spray, if you're spraying it, to spray the whole shape. Good point. So we're going to put our prize drawing thing in here. And yeah, there we are. Here's my mouse. When I click draw, it's going to choose a winner. So let's get me in here. So you got countdown time here for getting your Hashtag bottle stopper. First thing we're going to give away is the bottle stopper that I made today, which is going to be finished up a little prettier. I didn't really do any sanding, but I'll sand it and I'll put some finish on it and put hardware on it and send you the completed one. And number 2 prize is a kit to make your own couple of bottle stoppers out of a Banksia pod. We've got a Banksia pod, a couple of hardware stopper, stainless steel stopper things, and a couple of inserts. And you can, of course, make something else out of the bottle stopper and use a different wood for your bottle stoppers. But I'm just trying to get you to go and try my project, okay? So anybody last minute, it's about time. We're going to draw for the completed bottle stopper I did today. And here we go. It's going to pick a name. And that person, you'll have to contact me if I don't know you. Oh, Keith Hargrove, I do know you, so you will not be hard to find. I have your email and everything, and I can send it to you. If I don't have your email and your address already, you're going to have to contact me because I won't know, I won't know who it is. So if you entered an hour ago and then you left, I might not ever hear from you again. Okay, so we're going to draw again, and this time it's the bottle stopper kit. So Keith Hargrove gets the completed stopper, and we draw again. This is for the kit to make your own couple of Banksia bottle stoppers. And who have we got? Charlie Capper. Congratulations, both Charlie and Keith. And Charlie, I'm not sure if I have your email, so hopefully you're here now and I can get it to you. If you'll send me an email, let me see here. Let's just get this out of here. Let me put my email in here, Cindy@cindydroza.com. Oh, where'd that one come from? So you'll have to send me an email and get me your address so that I can send it to you. All right. Well, congratulations to our winners today. I always love this part. It's fun giving stuff away. I'm a terrible salesperson. I'd rather just give stuff away. All right. So what I want to close with is, how am I going to finish this Banksia bottle stopper? I talked about the lacquer, but what I want to show you is what I do when I'm finishing with oil on a Banksia pod. The issue here is the oil is going to get in all those holes. So here's what we got. First thing we got is a pair of gloves. And finish, a brush, a rag to wipe it off. I always pour some finish out into a container rather than dipping into the jar of stuff. And if you are familiar with doing these oil finishes, you've probably experienced how they tend to harden up in the container, like gel up in the container. So I am experimenting with putting it in a stop loss bag. You can buy these online. Sometimes the places that sell these sort of finishes have them. And that's all I have left out of a quart of stuff. And so far so good. There's a little bit of solidifying around the bag, but for the most part, this has lasted longer than these finishes typically last if you just leave them in the factory container. I think it might be starting to thicken up now, though. Kind of seems like it is. So step one, the easy part, just slather this all over everything. I'm trying to get oil which will harden up. This is not mineral oil or walnut oil. This is a hardening oil that will harden within something like 24 hours. And it won't really totally stabilize the furry bits, but it'll help. If you want to completely stabilize the furry bits, I recommend CA glue. I've tried a lot of other things, epoxy and stuff, and really it comes down to CA being the best, easiest to use choice. It's thin, it penetrates in there. So we've got it completely saturated. I might give it a little time to work. Someone else has tried the stop loss bags and you prefer Bloxygen. Well, this is one of the things about wood turning is you get everybody with a different experience with the same stuff. And I have tried Bloxygen and not had any luck with it. Didn't find that the Bloxygen, what the Bloxygen is, it's a spray, it's a gas under in an aerosol can, a gas that's heavier than air, so it'll sink down to the top of the surface of your substance, and it will keep the oxygen from touching your finish. I don't know, I just haven't had a good luck with the Bloxygen, but I've had good luck with the stop loss bag. And yeah, they are kind of a pain, but I don't know, I'm doing fine with them. So there we are. We have our opinions. Neither of us is right or wrong. Now, here's the secret. What am I going to do to get all that stuff out of those holes? This is it. Compressed air. I'm going to just, now that I've wiped off most of it, I'm going to spray, and a lot of it's just going, everywhere. I'm hoping it'll mostly go out into my rag. I don't usually do this right at the lathe. I usually do it in an open area where all that stuff that's, spraying everywhere, I don't want it really at my lathe, but this is where the camera is. So now I've got all the finish out of the holes, sufficiently out of the holes. I sanded this to 4,000 grit. So you can see it's just one coat of oil so far. And maybe I'll put on another coat. And that's all I really need to get a really nice finish on my Banksia Pod piece. And so we're going to wind down for the day. Oh, good. My friend Lyle is here. Lyle is, let me put this up again. Lyle is doing the AAW Presents on this coming Saturday. That's the day after tomorrow. I will be his moderator, so you'll see me there too. And Lyle always does a great presentation. I always learn a lot, and I know you will too. So it's entertaining and educational and just fun. So we're going to watch Lyle do his thin-walled goblet with a long stem, and that's on Saturday. Okay, what finish was in the stop loss bag? Thank you for asking. That was the Sutherland Wells polymerized tongue oil. Oh boy, you make my brain hurt here with this one. Tongue oil, boiled linseed, and walnut oil meet the criteria for fat-based oils that will cure. Okay, that's good. Have I ever tried Minwax wood hardener? Yeah, and I never really liked this stuff. There are much other better ways to stabilize wood. But, the last time I tried it was 25 years ago. It might have changed. But I found that it didn't sand all that well, the Minwax wood hardener. It just didn't seem to, it kind of stabilized the wood. But CA is way better, faster, easier, doesn't stain the wood. Okay, so here we should take a vote now, right? Who likes stop loss bags and who likes Bloxygen? Nah, They're both good, whatever works for you, whatever you relate to, whatever works in your workflow. Okay, where did I get those Banksia pods from? There are 2 places I know of, maybe 3. Rockler has them. Woodcraft usually has them. Craft Supplies usually has them. The best thing to do is go to a symposium and pick them out yourself. Jim Syvertson, AustralianBurls.com, he has Banksia pods, and he has the great big ones. They cost a lot, but they're just the best you can get. And Gilmer Woods in, I believe, Oregon, they do them for a reasonable price, but you get what they give you. And some of them are going to be great looking and some of them are not. Oh, so what do I mean by that anyway? I'm rambling on here, I realize, but just stuff about Banksia pods. I love them, and I really have learned a lot over the years working with them. A good one, in my opinion, has a consistent dispersion of eyes around it. Not a big blank spot on one side and a whole bunch of eyes on the other. No, it's not necessarily, but for most of the things I make, like this mushroom. Yeah, mushrooms are very forgiving with the design. It can be funky looking, lopsided, and a mushroom looks great. But a hollow form, maybe an ornament, I don't know, not so much. If the outside isn't real great looking, then I might turn it down and not have a natural edge. If the outside, now this one that Charlie won in the drawing today is a particularly nice looking one in that the exterior isn't all terribly beaten up. It is a little on this side. It's got pretty good dispersion of eyes. It'll make some good mushrooms. So, yeah, I find that when I buy a box of Banksia pods, I never just buy one because you might ruin it. So at least I'm going to buy 2 or 10, or let's say I bought a box of 50. All of them are going to be usable. They are not all going to be usable for the same project. There are some projects where I really want the outside to look very clean and fresh. And there are some projects where I want to turn the whole outside away, and so I don't really care whether the exterior is beaten up or not. So, and some of them are punky in the middle. Well, that's kind of a problem if you're going to be hollowing it, but it actually, the punky ones have some nice color to them. So for a mushroom, they're great. All right, so I'm just rambling here, and what I want to do is close things out here and say goodnight to everyone. I will leave you with the QR code to my mailing list. So if you would like to subscribe, you will get the link to sessions like this, and also to my online classes and other things I do, such as Vendor Showcase, which is coming up. Do we have Vendor Showcase ready to go? I think so. Vendor Showcase, April 1st and 2nd, is going to be a lot of fun. It's free. You can register for Vendor Showcase here with a QR code, or go to my website and sign up for my mailing list, and I'll be sending you stuff for that. All righty, so we are closing things out for another day. I went longer than I wanted to, but I just can't stop talking about Banksia pods or Bottlestoppers, so there we are. And thank you all for being here. I really enjoy you coming to watch me, and especially to contribute and ask questions and offer your own knowledge. This is what wood turning is all about, sharing our knowledge with each other. So I hope to see you at the next one. I'll be here in 2 weeks, same time, same channel, and I hope to see you there. Bye now.